So it's been a long time since you and I recorded a podcast. We were in the flow of it when you first joined Meadow over the summer, last summer. But then, things just like picked up, such as startup life. And we've just been so heads down in developing the systems and the digital infrastructure and the actual infrastructure of the center, the physical infrastructure, and operations, fulfillment, hiring. We've been hiring like crazy, just growing like crazy. And it's been a whirlwind. And the podcast went to the back burner for a while, but we're back. And we are setting the intention to be more regular with it. And even again today, it felt like, oh man, we have so many things to, it's like, no, we're going to at least show up for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Give people an update and stay committed to our intention of being more consistent with the podcast. So here we are.
Also to let go of perfection. I view the podcast as like just a work in progress. Running for anybody interested in running a podcast, going from 1 camera to 3 live is like 10 times harder and more complicated. But it's been a fun challenge, and it's so fun to do too. So
it's been definitely a growth edge and and challenging. But letting go of perfection. It's such a big one. Perfectionism. We just had a client share about that in our community, which is also new. We have an online community and learning platform now called Meadow Med School. That's something I've been envisioning for a long time. So really cool to be in V1 of that. But a client was sharing there about how perfectionism is something that they're facing off with. And so, this whole content creation, the podcast, just owning a service center, all of it is a practice and letting go of perfection, because for us perfectionists, I feel like you don't identify as much at all. I learned so much from you. But for us recovering perfectionists, we have this, we have the vision in our mind, and it is perfection. And inevitably, when you're in the process of building and creating and manifesting in the physical realm, the idea, there's incredible amount of frustration. There's also, I think, a procrastination, keep putting it off until it's perfect. Well, in reality, it's never perfect, as perfect as we conceive of in our mind. And so, just letting that go and trusting that you can always iterate. And not only that, but you can't get better without just doing the reps. So anywho, that's what this is, the podcast. And here we are. So a few things I wanted to share are just updates. Like, I think when we showed up here last time, we really just had one primary journey room at the center that was going each week. And we have always had 2 other rooms. We have a 2-story center. It's a converted home, historic home here in the Selwood neighborhood of Portland. And we've always had 2 journey rooms downstairs, but they weren't quite furnished and decorated and all the things set up for journeys, and we just didn't have the demand for it in the beginning. But since we just keep putting our message out there and we keep growing, we now are consistently having clients downstairs as well as upstairs on journey days. And we're now having multiple journey days a week. We started out with just 1 journey day a week, and now we're up to 3 journey days a week. And so we have the 3 rooms now, 3 days a week. And that's really fun and exciting. We just finished furnishing 2 additional conference rooms, meeting rooms. They're kind of just all-purpose rooms where clients can check in at the beginning of the day, where they can meet with facilitators in preparation and integration sessions that happen the day before and the day after journeys. Just a nice little meeting space. It's a great place. I also just love that our facilitators can just work out of the center, even when they're not seeing clients. It's kind of their home base for working. And it's just really coming together. Other updates, we've hired quite the team in the meantime.
Yeah, we have an awesome team. So I think it would actually be better if you share about the team.
Me share about the team?
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, okay. So who did we bring on first? I think it was Taylor that we brought on first. And Taylor is our consultation specialist. So I found myself getting totally overwhelmed, bogged down by taking so many calls from prospective clients who are interested in working with us. And we just put out the bat signal, and Taylor answered, and she has become a true consultation specialist for Meadow. So she is the one who, after clients have their initial discovery, well, first clients will submit their application just to see if they're even eligible for psilocybin facilitation. And then they have an initial discovery call. You were previously taking all of the discovery calls, and then they'll have the full 1 hour complimentary consultation call. And that is now taken with Taylor. And that's really where clients get to share in extra depth and detail what it is that they're moving through and what they're hoping to receive in working with psilocybin facilitation. And Taylor is just so incredibly emotionally intelligent. She is an incredible student of psilocybin. I mean, she was experienced with psilocybin before and other psychedelics, but she has just become a total expert, just drinking up everything I have to share about it and helping to educate prospective clients. And she's so heart-centered and mission-driven and inspired to bring this medicine to more people. And she's just been an amazing person to bring onto the team. We've also brought on Tom and Zoe. There are screening specialists, so they will help with all of the free discovery calls that we offer to prospective clients. And they've been also just a joy to work with, also very mission-driven, heart-centered, and passionate about bringing psilocybin to more people and helping people to heal with this medicine. And both have a really deep personal connection to it. We have brought on Nina, our service center representative. She's going to help me with serving the medicine here at the center. She'll be meeting every client who walks in through the doors. And she also has her own personal healing journey with psilocybin healing after her traumatic brain injury that she had. And it's so inspiring. And she is also so heart-centered. And it really, each and every person who's joined the team, it feels very fated, like there are forces greater than us bringing us together to be in service of being the destination for safe, legal, and beautiful psilocybin experiences. And then, of course, we have our team of facilitators. I'm actually in talks to add more facilitators to the team who bring additional skills and experience and areas of specialty and expertise. So that's just all super exciting. And I think another cool thing to share would be about just what's going on the more technical side of Meadow with kind of what we're building out. We've also added another member of the team very recently there. Do you want to share about that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we are using the tools of the trade. Their AI is making developing our software tools a lot more fun and fast. So we, behind the scenes, have a content department. We have people that help us with editing, brainstorming ideas, and we built some tools with that. I think the most exciting ones that we have are the way that we process the health intakes. So when a client becomes a client with us, they answer an extensive form about their health background, and the way that we efficiently process that information in a way that's useful for clients is we built this custom tool called our health intake review platform. And that allows us to synthesize the information presented to the physician, you in this case, but maybe another one in the future, and send it to our facilitators, send it to the client, where I feel it's a real nice balance between using technology to look for patterns and summarize information, but also having a human that is an expert in medication interaction and just all around psychedelic physician skill set, review that information and send it out. So that's an exciting tool that we're using behind the scenes that just makes the client experience better.
Not
And
just better, but safe. I think this is, I don't want to gloss over this, what the health intake review process is here, where, I mean, we have clients, it takes 30 to 40 minutes to fill out the initial health intake form, where we
yeah,
just we take a total holistic health history probably the most comprehensive form anybody fills out for a physician to review physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health, and especially psychiatric history, trauma history. And then what we do is we create a risk stratification. So every client that's coming through, I mean, everybody has been screened for safety and eligibility, a baseline level of it. But, there's some other factors that make journeys, whether it's complex PTSD, we'll talk about that later, previous psychedelic experiences, a number of parameters that help us to just create a risk profile and plan for that accordingly. It helps to inform dosing as well when facilitators go to, and I work with clients about choosing dosing. And then every client also gets a medication, supplement, and substance use guidance that's personalized to them. And so if you are taking blood pressure medications, if you're anticoagulated for atrial fibrillation, if you have chronic kidney disease, whatever it is, we help give you guidance on what medications should be held before the journey, for how long should they be held, which medications need to be considered to be tapered and discontinued with a washout period. All of that is to optimize for not just safety, but depth of experience, efficacy for psilocybin. If you don't have this reviewed by a physician who is well aware of the interactions of psilocybin with various medications, understands how psilocybin is metabolized, all of that, or it could be another clinician, whether it's a pharmacist or whatnot. All of that is just in-house here at Meadow. It's just part of the care. You don't have to get kicked back to your primary care doctor, your specialist necessarily. Sometimes we still do that. We still like to solicit if it's a special case, but vast majority of the time we can handle it and provide that kind of guidance. And actually we're the ones providing the education to the clinicians. And that's, it's just all part of the care here. And I'm really, really proud of that. I am all the time saying that there is no safer place to be when you're doing a psilocybin macrodose journey than here. And I really stand by that. And the tools that you've developed that help to leverage me in that process to see more clients, they're incredible. And we're always iterating on that. But it ultimately is all in service to better client care.
Amen. Love it. Do you want to shift gears a little bit? Do you want to do any more company related updates, or do you want to shift and talk about?
I think those are the main ones.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I did want to touch on Meadow Med School. So we've always had a preparation course that is included in the care for every client. So it's a self-paced course, a series of videos that help to cover all the bases. I say it's everything you need to know, but nothing more. So it's just a basic foundation. It's like psilocybin journeying 101. And we, I go over intention setting and dosing choices, depth of experience, psychedelic experiences, challenging experiences, how to navigate challenging experiences, stuff like that. That's always been included. But now we are hosting that course on our learning platform, which we've named Meadow Med School. And I've always envisioned clients who are coming through as being more like students than clients. And it's in the school of consciousness medicine. We're learning how to work with ourselves, our consciousness for healing and coming into wholeness, really, which is the definition of healing. And I've always viewed myself as being more of a mentor than anything. And so it's just a place for clients they can introduce themselves. There's peer-to-peer learning. I host a weekly office hour there where I do mindset coaching or answer questions about anything related to psychedelic work. A question that came up just this past week that a client had was understanding ego identity a little bit more. Like, what is the ego and how to work with the ego? And does that relate to how does that relate to my higher self? Oh, the little self and the higher self. Just those kinds of things are what we get to discuss there. And we also host our monthly integration circle there. So for all clients who come through, you get access to 6 months of integration support. So really well, clients are really well supported there. And we just continue to add resources to that. We have our contemplative reading list there and other resources. So I'm really, really excited to get that launched and to just keep adding more and more value there.
It's awesome. Yeah, that's a huge part of what we're doing, building that community slash school. Sweet. Well, I think every podcast we should just start off with that. What's top of mind for us and what are we excited about recently? Do you want to touch on PTSD, complex PTSD? I know it's so top of mind for you since you've been working on it recently. Maybe give 10 minutes on it. We'll do something short and then we can do something longer next time. But give us a
Yeah.
little primer on what you've learned so far.
Yeah. I mean, complex PTSD is something that I just nearly every client who comes through our doors to
Well,
is some,
start from the definition. What is it?
yeah. So I think it's helpful to contrast it with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, more acute PTSD, which classical PTSD is usually in relation to a singular event, a singular traumatic event, whether that's a car accident or military combat, a natural disaster, or something like that. So that's sort of well described in psychiatry in the DSM, and it's something that is a diagnosis. I don't like to focus on diagnoses, but it's something that evolved out of something called shell shock, just this observation that physicians had from combat veterans. And complex PTSD, though, rather than a singular event, it's usually it's more chronic. It's usually within close, intimate relationships where there was a prolonged period of not feeling safe and emotional instability or unpredictability, and that well, and in particular, if it happens early on in early childhood and adolescence with primary caregivers, and whether there's emotional neglect or outright emotional abuse, physical abuse, that informs how the nervous system develops. And one can deeply internalize the feeling of I'm not safe or the world is not safe. And there's a whole host of behavioral adaptations that come out from that. And I think a lot I don't even know if it's like actually officially recognized by the conventional medical establishment, but this is something that I think is becoming a lot coming into more awareness just in the in the zeitgeist, if you will, just because I see so many more people kind of identifying it in themselves. But
Do you think there's a significant difference between that and anxiety, depression, or is it kind of wrapped into those? How is that
totally,
decided?
yeah, I
Okay.
think that these things are it's sort of arbitrary, the distinctions that we make. But typically, the kind of person who has complex PTSD is somebody who they tend to be, I think, a little bit a lot of times they're higher functioning than anxiety or depression. Like somebody who's struggling with depression, they find it very hard to function. It's like a chronic freeze response, hard to get out of bed, lack of energy, lack of motivation, and just fatigue, body fatigue. And someone with complex PTSD, it's actually more of like a triggered response, an emotional reactivity, emotional overreactivity, interpreting the environment to be threatening when there actually is no threat. It tends to manifest within interpersonal relationships, whether it's close, intimate relationships or work relationships, and can lead to a lot of spiraling or catastrophizing
Sure,
or
sure.
just an overreactive stress response, and then cycles of shutdown, emotional shutdown, and distancing and numbing and distraction and that sort of thing. So
Got it. So these are the symptoms. What do you think it is? So basically, if a human being experiences hardship, then presumably throughout history, like other animals, they get through it, get over it, recover from it, live their life. They may be different. They may have a scar emotionally, but they're still functioning. They still go on throughout their life. Complex PTSD, this diagnosis or disorder, kind of implies that someone is broken or they're seriously suffering and weren't able to heal enough to live their life. Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking about it. Why is that? Why are people not able to recover how maybe we once were in the past, or is that the wrong framing? Maybe it's always existed and people just didn't look at it as a disorder or didn't understand it, so it was just left in the shadows. I mean, what's your take on what's going on?
Like whether or not this is a new phenomenon
Yeah,
versus
why is it a new phenomenon? Are we thinking about it properly in the right context for the impacts that it has on people, has it always been going on and we're just kind of maybe exacerbating it by highlighting it and talking about it?
I believe that humanity is in the midst of a really big shift evolutionarily
Yeah.
from survival mode to post survival, post scarcity, abundance, and thriving and flourishing creator mode. So, like, and I think that's why I do think it is a phenomenon that probably is characteristic of these times. Because before, when you were living hand to mouth, you had to be in survival mode. Like
Yeah.
survival mode served you
Right.
to be focused on the threat and to always be you didn't have anxiety and depression because you had a channel for that energy, for that stress energy. It was eustress. It's good stress. But then in the modern era where, so many people will say, the people who are wanting to address complex PTSD who have identified it as an issue, the key thing is that they say, I actually don't have a reason to be this way anymore. Like my current environment, I'm good. I mean, I'm away from the threat, whatever it was that conditioned my nervous system to be this way. But I'm still like, I thought if I got out of the relationship or moved out away from home, or I thought if I did this and, do whatever external factors, if I achieved this much, if I got this job, if I made this much money, like if I had the family, all the things, and they're still not happy.
Yeah.
And that's when it gets identified as a problem. And it manifests in many different ways, but it typically manifests in this cyclical way where they feel stuck in this reflexive patterning conditioning. And it doesn't matter what happens in their external environment, they're living as if they're still in the past.
And so psychedelics come in and break that framing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think more and more people, especially as more and more people achieve a certain level of material abundance, it's like, okay, you have all of your basic survival needs met. And really, we don't need much as creatures to survive.
Like
You
your
need
mom
food.
says 3 warm meals a day.
Yeah, exactly. Food, water, shelter,
Yeah, so
safety.
true.
I mean, not every human still
Yeah.
on the planet has that. So we still are stuck in a scarcity mindset here. But I think that yeah, a lot of people are recognizing like, wow, I have all of this and I'm still not happy. And so, okay, let me like dig a little bit deeper, and maybe it has something to do with the way that I'm just perceiving reality, processing reality. And I'm ready to update my operating system to no longer be running the same old programs. Because what happens is when you're growing up in a high threat environment where there's emotional unpredictability and you're not safe, there's not secure attachment, then we deeply internalize certain beliefs about ourselves in order to survive. And so it's like one of them is I am not enough, and I have to do to earn love and safety and protection, which everyone should be freely given when they're a young child from their primary caregiver. But unfortunately, that's just not the reality. And so we'll deeply internalize like I need to do in order to receive love, which goes back to I'm not enough, or I'm not worthy of love. That's a really big one, the unworthiness piece of it, or I'm not safe, or I'm not good, that I'm somehow inherently bad. That's why I'm being treated this way. I mean, there's many different core beliefs that people internalize. And when that's your sort of the source code of your operating system, that I'm not good, I'm not enough, and I'm not worthy, then that will get reflected back to you over and over again in your reality, because it's the lens through which you're interpreting reality. And so we need to update those core beliefs, and everything is downstream of core beliefs about ourselves. And that's why I talk a lot about examining our limiting beliefs, because our beliefs limit the reality that we experience. So if we update our beliefs, our core beliefs, then that then informs the emotions and thoughts and behaviors. And then it just becomes a self-reinforcing loop. And so, yes, that's where psychedelics enter in, because so many people say like, okay, I've done the work, I've done the therapy, I do cognitive behavioral therapy, like all the modalities, EMDR, IFS, all the things. And that's still kind of processing in the cognitive intellectual layer and the higher layers, and not in the deeper layers of the mind, of the psyche, the subconscious layers. And there's kind of more I'm digging into in preparing for this piece of educational content around the prefrontal cortex versus the amygdala, which is our fear center, and then our higher order executive processing center. But psychedelics, just because of how potent they are in terms of shutting down the dominant default mode network, which is where a lot of our survival adaptive programming and conditioning lives, and increases access to all these other neural networks. And then you have this echo afterwards where the critical learning window is opened, and you can actually rewrite a lot of these core beliefs. And it's not even you rewriting them. It's mostly actually a process of deconditioning and unlearning all of the things you internalize. Like, our true nature is infinite love and belonging, trust, safety, all of that. But that's how we are, I believe, when we're created, when we're born. But it's in the conditioning, whether it's the epigenetic layers that we inherit, but nature and nurture, but we are conditioned to forget that. And what psychedelics do is it's like a cleansing of sorts. You get to, clear out the old programs that no longer serve you anymore. And then come home to your true nature. And then that becomes what's reflected back to you day to day. And so the journey itself is very therapeutic in that way. But then it's also the integration afterwards is so critical, because in the weeks afterwards, it's really easy to revert back to the old default mode network programming if you're not careful, because you've developed all of these habits that reinforced those old beliefs. And so it's really critical to put into place new practices and new habits and new behaviors that reinforce the new programs, the new stories, the new updated beliefs.
All right. I like that. Lots to chew on. Well, let's leave it at that. Let's leave it as a primer. More to come when you publish your video, which I'm excited for. And anything else you want to add before we wrap?
No, I think if this sparks any ideas or questions or anything, I would love to hear in the comments from people anything that you would like for me to touch on. I can always include that in future videos. I think this is just it's a huge topic. The only other thing I want to add is how it's about nervous system rewiring, not just brain rewiring. And so we have our central nervous system, which are the brain and spinal cord, and then we have the entire peripheral nervous system, which is what is actually collecting sensory input from our environment through our, through our five senses. And so it's a process for healing complex PTSD. It's not going to be healed after one journey. It's peeling layers of an onion, and so much of this work is really about just stepping onto the path and choosing this path, which is a path of leaning into whatever experiences we've had that shaped us, and to allow those experiences to be this spark that leads to our awakening. And we start to develop a completely different relationship with the experiences we've had. And it's a process, and it's a journey of a lifetime. And it's so worth it. And I speak about this from a very personal lens, and I'll share a little bit about that in the video that eventually comes out.
Nice, I love that.
And
I like when you talk about yourself, your story,
my own story,
I think it comes off way more authentic.
Well, I'm still working at that vulnerability. Putting yourself out there on the internet is no joke. But yeah, I agree. I do find it to be really rich when I do share.
Yeah.
And stay tuned.
Sweet. Thank you. Bye-bye.